Amazing. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I'm really good. I'm up in I'm away at a writers' retreat in County Monaghan. So I've just come up from dinner and there's all kinds of poets and children's writers and musicians and actors around the table. So that's the only rule here, is that everybody has to meet for dinner at 7 o'clock. So yeah, it's really luxury up here.
That sounds amazing. That sounds so exciting. So on the retreat, I guess like you're writing, is there like kind of like workshops and things happening as well?
No, nothing like that. It's just time for you. It's called the Tyrone Guthrie Centre. Sir Tyrone Guthrie died in 1971, and he left his house to the state for the exclusive use of artists of all types from the north and the south of Ireland. And yeah, so every time I come here, I meet new people, and it's amazing the conversations like you can have around the dinner table that spark an idea or that change the way you think about something. It's a real, I don't know, I feel like I get my best work done here.
That's amazing. That's so fantastic. And it's amazing also that there's kind of such a like a place that's been dedicated to kind of
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
the arts. Really, it's something that we're seeing diminishing now, right? So
Yeah, we're very lucky. Artists are treated pretty well in Ireland. And writers, we get tax breaks. We get, there are 4 libraries within 2 miles of where I live, and they're relatively new. They've all been updated and refurbished within the last 10 years, I'd say. So, yeah, writing and writers and reading and books are really important to Irish people. Thank God.
it's so true. Actually, kind of one of my questions was going to be around like the fact that there's so much writing now happening in Ireland. Like we see so many books coming out of Ireland. Like I was going to ask kind of what you thought drove that, but clearly some of it must be the fact that it's just so well regarded as a profession there.
Yeah, I think the number of women writers writing, and particularly the number of women writing about crime, I think it was like 45 at last count. 45 Irish women published writers. Actually, it's more than that. I think it's 65. But like, who are alive today? Like, it's a huge number for a small country.
Yeah.
And I think it's to do with the how women were kept down for so long. The Catholic Church had such a hold on society. Like there was no divorce, there was no contraception, homosexuality was illegal, abortion was illegal, rape within marriage wasn't a crime. So women had to leave their jobs when they got married up until the 70s. So yeah, women were silenced for a long time. And then when they started writing, and especially when they write about crime, and in all of my books, I reflect some of the misogyny of the past in some way or another. So yeah, we're kind of addressing those societal issues around our crime writing. And yeah, it seems to have caught the imagination of readers. And I'm looking at friends now like Andrea Mara, who's All Her Fault is now on Sky TV. It's so exciting. Catherine Ryan Howard's 56 Days is going to be on Netflix in the new year. Louise Kennedy's Trespasses started on Channel 4 on Sunday night. And who else? There's somebody else, some other Irish woman writer Marion Keyes, The Walsh Sisters. All of her books have been adapted for TV, and I think you'll get them in the UK sometime next year on BBC. But yeah, there's so much going on now for TV, and yeah, fingers crossed for me.
I was going to say, fingers crossed for you. Absolutely. Like your writing, I often think like your books are things that I recommend to everybody, because I'm always like, it's a book that will literally grab you. And I'm so excited if there ever is like a movie or a TV adaptation for any of your books. I think they would translate extremely well. So yeah, fingers crossed for you. That would be very, very exciting. So obviously you kind of mentioned that you live in Ireland still, and so like tell us a bit more about your background, like kind of how do you think that's informed some of your writing?
Well, I suppose the most notable thing that happened to me when I was a child was I had a brain hemorrhage when I was 6 or 7 years old. I was sliding down the banisters, which I'd been told not to do a million times, but I did it anyway. And this particular day, I slipped and I fell headfirst onto my brother's tricycle in the hall. And I hospital for quite a long period of time. I think it was August when it happened. So yeah, and it was 1973 or 74. So there was no CAT scan machine in the children's hospital at that time. So I had to be moved to an adult hospital to have my head examined. And that's how they found out that I was bleeding under an extradural hematoma. I was bleeding outside of my skull. So they drilled holes in my skull to relieve the bleeding. And anyway, it was all very dramatic, but I ended up with a weakness in my right arm and my right leg. So I can't use my right hand. I can't do that with my right hand. So I do all of my typing with my left hand. So all of my books are written with one hand. And I walk with quite a heavy limp on my right side. So yeah, it made me a bit of an outsider, I suppose, growing up and going to school. My parents separated when I was 7 or 8. Like, we're all very hazy about these dates. They don't even remember. I don't remember. Nobody wrote anything down. But anyway, I think when I was 7, my parents separated, and divorce was illegal. So when my dad met his second wife, he couldn't actually marry her because divorce was illegal. So yeah, there was 6. My mom and dad had 6 kids, and my dad and Maria had 3 daughters, and we all became very close to each other. So now we are, I'm one of 9 children of my dad's, and I'm close. I love them all. They're all great, and we all get on together. And on my dad's anniversary, Dad died in 2020. And on his anniversary, we all gather in Roscommon where he's buried, and we have a big piss up. It's always good fun.
Oh, I love that. And that's so interesting, kind of like obviously being such a young child and going through like quite a major trauma to also having kind of like a kind of not conventional family dynamic growing up, but clearly served you quite well. I think it's pretty amazing that you're so close with all your siblings as well. That's such a lovely dynamic to have.
Well, I think that's down to my dad's 2 wives.
Yeah.
My mum and their mum, who were so keen that we should all get on, that we should all be a family. Like those 2 women, like their mum died unfortunately 10 years ago. My mum is still alive at 93. But if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have developed that relationship. They were great.
That's amazing. That's really, really amazing that but like the fortitude, and also I guess it's quite a forward thinking thing to have done to kind of be so pro kind of making sure that you all like knew each other and were a family. So that's pretty amazing. And like your novels, of course, like explore kind of some of those more complex family dynamics as well. And do you find that kind of any of your own history kind of inspired that, or do you think it was more kind of outwardly you were seeing these things, or just inspiration?
Well, not really. Not until I think I got to Our Little Cruelties, and I wrote about the dynamic between 3 brothers. And some of that was inspired by true events, like fighting over how many peas one kid got on their plate as opposed to another kid. That's true, but they didn't sleep with each other's wives. And they didn't cheat each other, and my brothers are all very cool. So but minor things I would grab, and and my mother isn't a monster. And yeah, and now the book I've just finished writing, that's going to be out in March, that's about two sisters who grew up together, and then events happen. But and Sally Diamond was kind of a tricky one, because yeah, that just started as me having these conversations, light-hearted conversations with my husband about where we wanted to be paid and things like that. And yeah, so I said, I don't care, it'll be your problem because I'll be dead. I said, you can put me out with the bins. And then I thought, what would happen if somebody did put somebody out with the bins? And then I thought, what kind of person would put somebody out with the bins? And then I came up with this kind of neurodivergent character, but I didn't want her to be on the autistic spectrum disorder. I didn't want her to have Asperger's. I didn't want her to have any specific label, because I needed her behavior to be pretty inconsistent, so that she'd behave one way to one character and behave in a completely different way to another character. So yeah, I had to invent a backstory for her that would explain all that strange behavior. So yeah, when it came to the backstory, it suddenly took a very dark turn. But I like all of my books, I literally made it up as I went along.
That's incredible. Strange Sally Diamond is genuinely one of my favorite books of all time as well. And it's one of those books I think you can always recommend to somebody because of the fact, and whenever I talk to anybody about it, I always say, like, I can't tell you everything, but I can tell you that the story starts with a woman who puts her dad in the bin. And that is often kind of like such an intriguing thing to people that it gets them kind of hooked into the book.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating that kind of it's come around from a conversation as well, like just an average kind of like silly conversation, to have drawn such inspiration and to kind of written such a fantastic book as well. It's really quite incredible.
Thank you.
No, of course. I mean, to the point, so I will keep banging on about this, but my housemate literally said to me today, she was like, I've just finished one book and I don't know what to start next. One of them is Strange Sally Diamond, the options, and the other one is a TJ Klune book. And she was like, what do you think? And I was like, well, you read a book that you didn't love, so I feel like you need a book that's really going to get you. And I was like, just read Strange Sally Diamond, you're going to love it. So that's kind of, it's one of those books I will always recommend to anybody.
Oh, no pressure. I hope she likes it. What if she hates it?
Oh, I don't think she will. I think she'll absolutely adore it. I've not yet recommended it to somebody who hasn't loved it. So I think it's kind of testament to just what a writer you are. But obviously that's not just your only book as well. You started out with Unravelling Oliver, and you've written kind of Skin Deep and other books as well. And all of them kind of, I guess, take a bit of a alternative protagonist, as it were. They're never kind of like a straightforward person. How do you kind of decide your characters and what voices you give them?
It usually starts with a first line. Like, I always come in on a dramatic event, like something has just happened. Like in Unravelling Oliver, he's just beaten his wife into a coma. And it's how he reacts that tells you the type of character he is. Like in that opening chapter, you can see that he's just beaten up his wife, and he's casually going for a pint in his local pub and chatting to his neighbor who annoys him. And he talks about how they met and how they, how they got married. And it's obvious from the way he's talking that that he didn't really love her, but that she loved him. And you see how cold and calculating a character he is. And then you switch to another point of view by the neighbor, the guy he was having a pint with, and he has a very different version of Oliver and of Alice, who's in a coma. So it's it's always the opening instant that in Lying in Wait, a judge and his wife have just murdered a woman on a beach in Dublin, and Sandymount Strand, on a strand in Dublin, and they bundle her into the back of her car and they bury her in the back garden. So it's their reactions immediately after that, and immediately after that, Lydia says something like, oh, she has some really cutting line, like she deserved it. It's something really cruel and horrible. So that really sets up who she is. And all of my protagonists, it starts off with a big incident, and then how the main character reacts to that incident tells you a lot about who they are and what kind of story this is going to be. But Sally Diamond didn't really set up what kind of story it was going to be. That was unusual, because you thought you were in for something that was kind of quirky and a bit funny, and she's strange and a bit weird, and she's pretended to be deaf to avoid interaction and connection, and what kind of a person is she? And then when we find out through her father's letters and through his dictaphone tapes, then we find out what really happened, and then it takes a savagely dark turn into her past and introduces another narrative who actually knows a lot more than Sally knows about herself, because she doesn't remember any of it.
No, of course. It's so interesting to kind of hear you speak about your characters, and I guess like how, the initial point really shapes the rest of the story as well. And I kind of found, like, when I read Skin Deep, obviously, like, kind of the initial like few scenes, the daughter loving being around her father, and then you see this kind of like alternate perspective, and kind of the cruelty that's being inflicted on her family, really, by her dad, who really adores her but seems to despise. And then you obviously have the big kind of event that leads to everything else. And I think it's so interesting, kind of starting off with first lines and seeing how they evolve. Have you found that, like, your approach to characterization and, like, I guess writing your characters has evolved as you've written your various books? Do you think it's changed over time?
I don't really think so. I think I kind of have made it difficult for myself, because I became quite known for my opening lines, and I'm trying to kind of climb down off that a bit, because I can't keep coming up with these really striking opening lines. So the opening line of the next book, well, the opening line of the preface is, for the second time in 6 weeks, I woke up with the wrong husband. But the opening line of the book is, if my sister wasn't so beautiful, none of this would have happened. So, I don't know which is really the opening line, but but they're not as striking as the other opening lines. But the story, I think, I hope is as compelling as the other books.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be, and I'm sure we're all very eagerly awaiting it as well. Do you often start with the opening line when you start drafting all together, or is that something that kind of comes as you kind of get through the book?
Well, it's certainly with Unravelling Oliver, I had the opening line in my head for a year before I wrote it down. And then I wrote it down, and then it became a short story. So the first chapter was a standalone short story. I entered it into a competition. I got shortlisted and then didn't get placed, but it raised the questions about why he had beaten up his wife, but it didn't answer those questions. And I really wanted to know. So I carried on writing that story until I had a book. But that was the one line. And then the first line of the second book, Lying in Wait, was, my husband didn't mean to kill Annie Doyle, but the lying tramp deserved it. And that really, like, I then thought, who is she talking about? And who is this who's saying this? And what has the woman done to deserve this? And then you find out in the first paragraph, well, maybe in the last paragraph of the first page, that it wasn't her husband who dealt the fatal blow, it was her.
Yeah.
So you realize how unreliable she is on the first page and how manipulative she is. And yeah, so it was really the first lines, I think, that started me off, that kicked me off in all those stories.
Oh, I love that. And it's so fascinating as well that you kind of have these lines in your head, or you put them on paper, and then it's kind of prompting the question of like, oh, actually, what does happen next? It must be exciting as a writer almost to kind of like be able to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I always look at what's the logical next step. What would logically happen after this instance? And in Lying in Wait, for example, when they've killed this woman on the strand, what they should do is call the police and say there was a terrible accident. You know, they could lie their way out of it because he's a judge. Everybody's going to believe him, and she's a sex worker, so nobody's going to believe her. So, and she's dead, so she has no say anyway. So, like, you know, he could probably get away with it if they came up with some story. But no, they take the wrong decision and bring her home and bury her in their back garden, which, you know, I think it's 5 years later, or certainly a good few years later, that their son, their only son, discovers her body when he's doing some gardening. So, you know, it's such a, I don't know, it's when characters make bad decisions, that's where you get the plot. So don't do the obvious thing. Don't let them do the obvious thing, because the obvious thing, there's no plot in doing the obvious thing. You make them do the alternative thing. So rather than like hide her body, put her body in the water, you know, so it looked like she fell off some rocks and banged her head that way or something, to put her in the boot of the car and bring her home and bury her in the back garden is like the stupidest thing they could have done. But at the time, with the shock that the husband was feeling, and the calculation of what the mother was feeling, what Lydia was feeling, it was, she thought that nobody's looking for her. She has no family. She obviously, if she's a sex worker, she doesn't really have anybody who cares for her. So, you know, nobody's going to miss her. But she doesn't reckon on the dead woman, Annie Doyle's sister, Karen, who never stops looking for her.
Absolutely amazing. I've not read Lying in Wait, but I will absolutely be picking it up and sold that to me completely. That's so fascinating, and I guess I love the idea of kind of like doing the alternative, like doing do the wrong thing, and see what your characters can do.
Make bad decisions.
Yeah, it makes them intriguing, and I think it also makes it more realistic. Like you said, like I've never murdered someone and dumped their body in the sea or my garden, but you can imagine in those situations that's kind of what someone might do if you're not thinking straight, or if you are shocked in that situation. And often, like, so all of your novels that I've read kind of draw kind of more repeatedly to these more darker themes. Is that something you've always written about, and is it, and like, what kind of draws you towards writing about that?
I think there are the books I kind of like to read. Like my first inspiration really was a book called The Book of Evidence by John Banville. It's published in 1989, and I read it around that time. But then I was a stage manager in a former life, and I worked on a stage production of The Book of Evidence it was 2002 in Kilkenny Arts Festival here. And that was the inspiration for writing Unravelling Oliver. But I didn't start to do that until 2008. And I didn't finish it until 2012, because so it took 4 years to write that book. And it's a really slim little book. It's only like 240 pages or something. It's very short. But I had a full-on job, like a really intense job, working on a soap opera where we had 4 episodes a week. It was, you know, it's the equivalent of making a feature film every week. And it was really full-on intense. So I didn't have a lot of free time. So during my annual leave, I would go and work on this book, and that's eventually how it came together, just over the years of annual leave. It was finished in 2012 and then not published until 2014, because then I had an agent and an editor, and the agent wanted changes, and then I made changes to the ending, and then I took out a whole narrative that Oliver's mother had told, and they thought that wasn't relevant to the story. And then I got a publishing deal, and then the Penguin's editor wanted changes as well. She wanted the ending changed as well, not back to the original ending, but she still thought it was too abrupt. So I worked on that again, and yeah, I think I'm still, 6 books in now. I still haven't learned how to write, a tail-off ending. The endings of all my books do happen fairly abruptly. I think apart from Skin Deep, although it's kind of a chase towards the end, but yeah, and Sally, I'm definitely, yeah, I've had a lot of feedback from readers saying it's too sudden, and what happened to her, and you can't leave her like that, and poor Sally, she didn't deserve that, and I might have to pick Sally up again at some stage.
Oh, don't tempt us like that. That sounds because I think, yeah, judging from the reactions that are coming from the chat right now, I think that would be a very popular thing to do. And that's really fascinating, kind of like, I mean, I have a question around like the editorial side of it, and you said that the kind of ending changed for Unravelling Oliver, and obviously like you're trying to work on those more tapered out endings, although I think it's very stylistic of you to kind of have a more abrupt ending. I think it's a feature of your writing, and I think that's often quite powerful, right, as a writer trying to finding your voice. But someone in the chat, Claire, has asked, with the arrival of the pandemic, did this change the direction of Sally's outcome, or was there already an alternative in the pipeline for you?
That's funny that she should ask that, because I wasn't aware at the time, but I wrote most of that book in lockdown, and Ireland had one of the most severe lockdowns in the world. Like in New Zealand, I think, had the worst. They were almost totally locked down for 2 years, and people weren't allowed to leave the country or enter the country. But Ireland was pretty strict, and I wrote all of these characters who were socially isolated, like Sally first of all, and then Peter, who was socially isolated because his father told him he had this disease, and then Lindy, isolated because of, I don't want to spoil it, but she was obviously going to be isolated. So there was an awful lot of social isolation in there. And it was only after I finished writing it that I realized that I had done, and that happens a lot with my writing, actually, that some reader will point out that that when Sally starts to come out of her shell, when she starts going to psychotherapy and begins to make friends, she grows at the same time as the village she's living in grows. Like a factory opens in her village. There's rumors of a new supermarket coming. There's
I think, Liz, I don't know if you can hear us or hear me, sorry, but I think you've cut out. Your Wi-Fi might have dropped, or it could be mine, actually. That's always a possibility. Okay, I'm seeing reactions in the chat, so I don't think it is mine. Hopefully she'll be back in a minute. Let me see if I can get her. I'm really enjoying this. I don't know if everyone else is as well. I really hope you are, but it's fascinating to talk to her, and she's such a brilliant speaker, right? Like very, very engaging. So this feels like an absolute kind of dream come true, honestly, to be able to speak to her. And also this is like one of my family's favorite books now as well. It's like one of my mum's favorite books. We read it at book club. It's now like one of my sister's favorite books as well. And I'm hoping like my best friend will get hooked on it as well. So yeah, I've lent it to colleagues. I don't know, I'm a big fan, possibly her biggest, but I don't know. Right, we'll see. Oh, okay, she may be able to rejoin, hopefully. It's always the thing with technology. It never really works when you want it to, is what I find. Like, you know, it's very temperamental. Check. Hello. I can meet. Amazing. Sorry. Did you? There we go.
I don't know what happened. I don't know whether it was my end or your end.
I think it might have been your end, but that's it. I was just saying technology never works when you want it to, does it? But
oh, never does. I'm sorry if it was me.
No, don't worry at all. So we were talking about you were kind of speaking about your experience of lockdown, and you hadn't quite realised that you'd written the book during what we now know is like a very long period of time.
I know. And then I was talking about how the village grows at the same time as Sally does. I don't know whether you got all that or whether I was talking into the void.
Got the front of that, but it'd be lovely to hear the rest.
Well, I was talking about how Sally, you know, as she is beginning to make friends and to meet new people and have new experiences, the village is growing around her as well, and new people are coming to the village, and the village is growing. There's a pharmaceutical company coming. There's a meat plant has just opened, and there's rumors of a supermarket wanting to buy up property, and so she is emerging from her shell as the village grows. And I realized, oh my gosh, I've done that before with Skin Deep, which you've read Skin Deep, that the island was very like Delia or Cordelia, in that it's wild and stunningly beautiful, but ultimately really dangerous, you know. So yeah, I realized that I reflect the personality with the background, you know, of the environment that the character grows up in.
Absolutely. That was kind of one of my questions as well, was that obviously some of your books are set in the most beautiful backgrounds with, like you said, with Skin Deep, she starts off on this like very, like you said, beautiful but dangerous island, and then ends up on the French Riviera. Where did kind of the inspiration for her going to the Riviera come from?
Well, I won a bursary to spend a month in the Princess Grace Library in Monaco. And when I was there, I decided, you know, I really should set a book here, because, you know, there was so much going on, and there was like Nice is the biggest city on the Riviera, really. I think it's the biggest city. But there's Cannes and Antibes and all of these towns on the Riviera, and it costs €1.50 to take a bus from Riviera to the other, because they're trying to get traffic off the roads. So they've made the buses really cheap. So you can just take a bus and be in another town, another amazing south of France Riviera, Côte d'Azur town, like in an hour or two. So it's really incredible. So I decided for that one, but actually the inspiration for that came from a song by Neil Hannon and a band called the Divine Comedy. It's basically his band, and the song is called Lady of a Certain Age. And if you want to see where the inspiration came from, look it up on YouTube after this, or download it, Lady of a Certain Age by the Divine Comedy, because it tells a brilliant story about a woman who's down in her luck on the Riviera, who is trying to get strangers to buy her drinks. and she lies about her age consistently throughout the song. And at the end of every verse, she's a decade younger, and it's just such a brilliant song. And I thought it was such an obvious story that Neil Hannon, the songwriter and singer, was going to write the book himself, but he never did. And I thought, well, I'm going to do it. So I actually met him then and interviewed him on the book show on Irish radio, and I told him exactly, that he had inspired the book. And I said, would you ever write a book? And he said he had no intention of ever writing a book. So I felt a bit better then, because I felt I hadn't quite stolen. But my book is very different. I just took that idea of a woman, she's an English woman who is in her mid-50s or maybe even mid-60s, who's trying to pass herself off as being a decade younger than she is. And she's talking about her life, very much born with the silver spoon in her mouth. And, but when I came to write the book, my woman was a woman who was passing herself off as an English socialite, but actually came from a very Irish peasantry background and had grown up on this very poverty-stricken island off the west coast of County Mayo, very specific place actually. So I had great fun with that book as well, also playing with Irish folklore and making up some folk tales that her father might have told her when she was a child. Really savage stories that tell women to know their place. So like the misogyny is creeping in there as well, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating. And it's amazing that you got to spend so much time on the Riviera as well, and that kind of inspired the book. And
yeah. And I had to go back again a few times after that and spend time in Nice, because I made friends when I was there in Monaco, and some of them were from Nice. So I spent some time in Nice a couple of times after that with friends I'd met during the month in Monaco. And, we had to go and test cocktails in the Negrosco Hotel to make sure that was that was an authentic thing that you could do. So yeah, we had a great time.
I love that. I really like the commitment to your books as well, taking one for the team and doing all the field research. That must be very hard.
Really tough. But then lying in wait, Lawrence works in a dole office, in a welfare office. And I worked in a welfare office when I was in my late teens, early 20s in London. Before I came back to Ireland. So like it's all material. It's all copy, as they say.
That's amazing. That's so interesting, and like kind of really interesting. I think some of the themes in your books, like particularly in Skin Deep, obviously, there's themes around pregnancy and abortion and kind of really, and it's set, I believe, like kind of in the 60s, right? Or a little bit later.
It's a little late. Well, it's a little later. It's a little later than that. But yeah, at a time when abortion is illegal.
Exactly.
So she is forced to have this child that she doesn't want.
Yeah.
Like a woman neglecting a child is a big no-no in society. Whereas, and you look at, detective fiction, and when the lead character is a male detective, he always has like an ex-wife and children he doesn't see, or children he's supposed to see, but he lets them down because he's working on the case, or he involves them in the case to entrap somebody or something awful like that. And yet women are judged so harshly that you don't get women who neglect their children in fiction very often, because it's so socially unacceptable. And I wanted to kind of examine that as well and turn it on its head. Although she is a monster. She's a real piece of work. But yeah, she neglects her son very badly, to an extent that I won't spoil for anybody who hasn't read it. But yeah.
No, of course. It's it is a fantastic book, and I think it really touches on a lot of those themes. But as you said, like, her character is nasty. You're not meant to like her.
Yeah, no, you're not.
I think that was one aspect of the book I found really interesting, because obviously in Strange Sally Diamond, a lot of people, I think someone in the chat has said that they kind of still hold her character very close to their heart, and they think that one of their favourite reads and a character that stays with them. And I think
I have to write a sequel, aren't I?
I think you'll have to. I think lots of people would be very, very keen to kind of hear what happens next. And I think also kind of some of the themes that you deal with within these books, so like even the ending of Strange Sally Diamond, when we chatted about it at book club, it was so interesting because some people said it was too abrupt, other people kind of spoke about the fact that she had been through so much, and obviously a lot of her like healing is not linear, especially when you've had a whole lifetime of treatment in a certain way. So actually maybe it was quite expected. But I guess kind of like my wider question is that your books kind of sit or are labelled within kind of being like psychological thriller, or kind of almost that domestic noir kind of
yeah, I think that's a really good, it's Julia Crouch, the writer Julia Crouch, who's a wonderful writer in her own right. She was the one who coined that term, domestic noir, and I think it's perfect, and it describes all of my books, because they're all really set around the home and the family and the dynamics within the family. And even though in Skin Deep, Cordelia is very much a loner and very much, you know, she doesn't want a family or whatever, but it is set up by a family dynamic that is so screwed up. So yeah, families are really important, and the more dysfunctional, the better.
Absolutely. Do you find that kind of having those labels kind of helps or hinders your creativity, or do you think it has no bearing whatsoever?
No, I tell you something. The first time I knew that I was a crime writer was when I won Crime Novel of the Year here at the Irish Book Awards in 2014 for Unravelling Oliver, and I was completely shocked because I hadn't been aware that I'd written a crime novel. Well, obviously I knew when it was nominated in the crime section. I was kind of going, what's it doing in the crime section? Like, I don't have a detective. I thought all crime fiction was about detectives catching murderers. And even though there are lots of unintended deaths in Unravelling Oliver, there's no actual murder. Like, he beats up his wife, but she doesn't actually die, you know, in the first chapter. So there's nobody sets out to kill anybody, but there are lots of unintended deaths as a result of bad decisions. Back to the bad decisions. Yeah, and in Our Little Cruelties, there's no murder. In Sally Diamond, there's no murder, and in the one that I've just written, there's no murder. So I'm writing crime novels without actually murdering people.
Very interesting niche to be in, but one I think that it, like you said, like, it kind of makes you, I think it really makes you stand out. And also it's where people are not doing the kind of the expected thing. You would expect a murder in a crime novel, but you're kind of backing the trend there and following your
characters. Well, I think it's more kind of psychological suspense than, see, crime is such a broad church these days, you know, it encompasses so much, like the cozy crimes, the Miss Marples and the Agatha Christie's and the Thursday Murder Club, to something as like violent as Jeffrey Deaver or S.A. Cosby, the brilliant American writer, and hard-bitten detectives like Rebus, and you know, I love the Karen Peary series, Val McDermott, or the Maeve Kerrigan Will They Won't They series by Jane Casey. You know, there's so many, and we've talked about the Irish writers already who are all being adapted for the screen. So yeah, like it encompasses so much. Andrea Mara's thing is really, she plays in her books on a mother's worst fears. All of her books are like play into, you know, what mothers are scared of, and usually it's losing their children, or not finding their children, or their children being kidnapped or disappearing, or they get on the tube and the doors close, and one of them was left on the on the platform, and one is on the tube, and it goes off, and it doesn't bear thinking about. But like, she does it so brilliantly. So yeah, we're very proud of all our Irish writers.
Absolutely, as you should be. I absolutely adore Irish writers. It's a niche that I've kind of found in the last year or so, and I just really love it. I think the style of writing, it's very lyrical, but also it's really interesting to be able to learn more about Irish culture and kind of like historical things as well, because there's such a rich history to Ireland, a lot of modern history as well. It's a fantastic way to kind of learn more. So yeah, it's really amazing. Kind of looking ahead, do you think there's like more of like a genre that you would kind of I know you said you don't really think too much about the genres, but do you think there's kind of like even like a form or something that you'd been looking to kind of explore?
Well, I'm actually up here at the moment in this writing retreat to write a play. I'm writing my first play, and it was inspired by Adolescence, that TV show, but that's all I'll tell you, because it could change. But it's not going to be performed until 2027, I think. Yeah, but I'm just doing, I've done the outline, and I'm just doing now the first draft of the actual play script. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying the process. I did try my hand at, I worked in TV for 11 years working on a soap opera, but I was really at the admin side of that, so I didn't really get to write my own stories. I think that's why I ended up writing, because I was so frustrated by not getting to write my own stories. I had so many ideas for the characters, but I was not allowed to pitch these stories, so that was hugely frustrating. So when I did get out and break out and write my own stories, I could use all those ideas for my own characters. So that was great. But I've lost the thread there. What was I saying?
Kind of genres and forms, and we're talking about your new play.
Oh yeah. So I did then write a little bit for TV. I was in the writer's room for a drama series called Black Shore. There was only one series of it made, and I loved being in the writer's room. I came up with lots of great ideas in the room, but then when it came to sitting down and writing the script, the formatting of the script just, like, I just couldn't handle it. I was just really not good at that. And I was very gently fired, and I was never so grateful to get out of a job in my life. I just thought, no, this is not for me. So yeah, there is somebody at the moment writing a script of Strange Sally Diamond, but whether it ever gets made or not, I don't know. But it's not for me to write.
That's very, very exciting. And
it may never happen. This has happened before. Like, all of my books have been optioned at one stage or another and then dropped. And Sally Diamond is, I think it is optioned. I haven't seen a contract yet, but I think it's just a matter of paperwork that it has been optioned. But who knows if it'll ever get made. Fingers crossed. Manifesting.
We are indeed. We are. Rachel has asked, actually, if she said, when Sally Diamond gets a TV adaptation, who would you like to cast in the part of Sally?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I should say, in case it does happen and they cast somebody. But I never visualize a person when I'm writing, but afterwards, when I thought about it, The Banshees of Inisherin had just come out. I don't know whether you saw that film. Mm-hmm. It was Oscar nominated, but it's kind of a film that nobody saw. And it's a very strange story about a friendship that goes wrong. But there's a girl in it who plays Colin Farrell's sister, and her name is Kerry Condon. And she was also in Breaking Bad as Mike Ehrmantraut's daughter-in-law, and she's been in lots of drama series, but she's never had like a leading role that I know of. But I think this would be a great thing for her. She won a BAFTA actually for Banshees of Inisherin for Best Supporting Actress. So like, she's not an unknown, but I think she'd be great. And I've met her once and she was great fun. I just wanted, because I know her.
That's amazing. And that's such a like amazing position to be in, to kind of have a thought in your head of who you would like to have, if it ever comes to fruition. Obviously we're all got our fingers crossed, hoping and praying for you. So that's very exciting. On the play part as well, I was going to say, like, it sounds really interesting that if it's kind of themed around more of the adolescence, misogyny, young people kind of vibe. I don't know if you've seen Inter alia recently.
No.
Oh,
No.
it's in the National Theatre at the moment, and it's by a playwright called, oh gosh, I'm testing myself now, Susie Miller, and she did Prima Facie, which was a one-woman play. Which
I've booked tickets for that. Jodie Comer is coming to Dublin, and I've booked tickets for that in January. Yeah, I booked. I like, it was like the tickets went on sale on a Tuesday morning or something, and I sent my husband into the box office of the theatre to actually queue, and he was 9th in the queue, and he got 7 tickets. So like, me and my six best friends are going to see it in January, and I cannot wait. So this guy wrote that play as well.
She's Inter alia. She's written, so she did Prima Facie. That was her first, well, debut play in kind of theatre, I believe. And then she's written this other one, and it's about a judge who works in the I think she's a criminal judge, and her husband is also a criminal barrister, I believe, or he's a solicitor at least, and they have a son, and a crime is committed by the son, and it kind of explores the family dynamics of actually kind of being involved on both sides of the law, but it kind of follow some of those themes within adolescence as well. So I really recommend. It's come out this year, I think, debuted on the West End, or in the National Theatre at least.
It might come to a cinema, the art house cinema here.
Exactly.
I wonder why he chooses Latin names for his plays, Prima Facie and Inter alia.
I think it's to do with the law aspect, because they both
of course, yeah, they're both legal terms. Yep, interesting.
Yes, I really recommend.
What's his name? Do you know?
Her name's Susie Miller.
Susie Miller. God, yes. I should know. It's probably on the tickets that I bought. But
I really recommend. She's a fantastic playwright, and her book of Prima Facie, she kind of extended the play into a full book, and it's absolutely fantastic. I really recommend listening to it, because Jodie Comer narrates the whole book as well, and it's just brilliant.
I think I'll wait until I've seen the play before.
I really definitely
worth doing. Which is normally the other way around. Normally book first. But if she wrote the book after the play, well, then that's interesting.
Definitely. She expands an awful lot on kind of some of the things within the play, but it's I think possibly my favourite play and one of my favourite books of all time. Which also brings me on to kind of the final part of our evening, which is that we're obviously still at book club. So Liz, what are you reading at the moment? And someone has also asked, kind of, do you have any favorites?
My favorite crime novel, I think, is The Lost Man by Australian Jane Harper. I just think it's so amazing, because the environment where it's set is so deadly. It's set in the hottest part of Australia at the hottest time of year, Christmas time. And there are 3 brothers, and one of them is found dead of dehydration. You know, it doesn't take, like, if you're 40 minutes outside in that part of Australia at that time of year, you're probably going to die, because it's so. But his car is nearby, and it's in perfect working order. He's gallons of water in the car. Like, it's a real mystery as to why did he die? Like, could it have been a suicide? Like, what a way to go, like that you would literally boil yourself to death in the heat of this, like, incredibly hot summer in this, like, deadly part and there's all this descriptions of snakes and spiders that can kill you, and like the fact that the Flying Doctor Service doesn't stock a lot of the anti-venom medication because it has a shelf life, and by the time they got to the site of the car crash or whatever it is, it would have gone out of date. Or
Right.
it would have, if it's out of a fridge there's all these kind of deadly things. And like every vehicle has to have 4 spare tires, because it's not unlikely that you could get 4 punctures driving like across these like 300 miles from one cattle ranch to the next. Like the main character, who's one of the 3 brothers, he lives on his own in one ranch, and the rest of his family live on another ranch that I think is 300 miles away. So they're his closest neighbors, and they're 300 miles away. So it's just an extraordinary, brilliant family dynamic story of, the 3 brothers, what their relationship was like, what, one of the brothers is married to a girl that the main guy had gone out with before. It's fantastic. So I love that one. The Book of Evidence by John Banville, I would recommend to everybody, because that's what started me writing. It's a very cold, callous man who commits a murder and then goes into hiding. But he's a very aristocratic type. He's comes from a good family and is very well-to-do. Well, he's not well-to-do, that's part of the problem. And that is why he has committed this murder. But it was based on a true case that happened here. And actually, I met the real murderer in real life at a book festival, which is very interesting. That's a whole long story. But The Book of Evidence by John Banville is terrific. And what was the other question?
What are you reading at the moment?
I'm reading. What am I reading? Oh, I'm just starting Sarah Vaughan's new book. Let me just hold on. It's a proof. National Treasure, Buried Secrets. It's called Based on a True Story. It's going to be published in March 2026 by Sarah Vaughan, who wrote Anatomy of a Scandal. And this is a proof. I haven't started. I'm just about to start it, but I really like her work. I really enjoy it. So I'm hoping to get this finished very quickly, because I know she would like some feedback. So I hope I get through it very quickly.
That's so exciting. It must be lovely to be able to kind of receive proof copies as well, and to be able to give like feedback. Do you ever end up with lines on covers or anything?
Yeah, regularly. Like they don't. My name doesn't show up much on the English books, but in Ireland it does, because like I'm a bigger deal in Ireland than I am in the UK. That sounds really boasty, but I am on the front cover of All Her Fault in the Irish version, in the Irish edition. So I read a lot of proofs, an awful lot of proofs. In fact, 95% of my reading is proofs.
Oh my goodness. Do you ever get time to read anything that's kind of on your like to be read list, or do you think it's mainly?
Well, I have the other book. I'm not going to go over and get it, and I can't actually see the title. It's by a Chinese writer, that somebody told me about, that I bought about 2 years ago, and I haven't got around to reading it yet. And I thought, while I'm here on this retreat, I'll have time, but I haven't had time. So I haven't even started this. Like I'm on page. See, I'm a dog ear person. I'm on page 29 of poor Sarah's book. So I'll have to get back to that, but I won't get near the Chinese one, unfortunately. Not this time.
No, not this time. Maybe at the next retreat you'll make it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's amazing. It's been lovely having you, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today. It's been absolutely fantastic and genuinely a bit of a dream come true for me to be able to speak to you.
Thank you very much.
Of course, thank you. And we've had lots of we've had a few compliments in the comments as well, people saying how much they've loved your books. So yeah, you're very, very well loved at chapter 25. So
oh, thank you very much, everybody at chapter 25. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Oh, amazing. Well, I hope you have a lovely rest of your evening and you enjoy the rest of your retreat.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.